All right, as we told you in tonight's opening monologue, new Pew Research poll. This is huge. It comes to this alarming conclusion. More Americans worried about fake news than terrorism. That's how much distrust rightly exists. The timing of this book could not be any more perfect. He's the author of the brand new book. It's called Unfreedom of the Press. It is now #1 2 weeks in a row on the New York Times bestseller list. Why? Because it's full of history and substance. In other words, a typical Levin book. He's the host of Life, Liberty, and Levin here on the Fox News channel, nationally syndicated radio show host. And he'd never admit it publicly, but a friend of mine. Great one. First of all, there's a reason all your books go to #1. Because they're full of substance. And I read it cover to cover. And I read your book, I look at this Pew Research poll, and I look at a president that has taken on this corrupt media and 2+ years of lying conspiracies and a hoax. How could anyone trust them?
Well, you know, Sean, I'll tell you why I wrote this book. Because the media won't self-police. There's no circumspection. There's no reconsideration. There's no shame. And there are really no standards left. So it's up to we, the people, to take a look at the media, since the media won't look at themselves. That wasn't always the case. I wrote down a few things here, problems with most of the mass media today. Notice I don't call them the free press, because they don't even understand what a free press is supposed to be or the history of a press, because they're destroying a free press. They commingle news and opinion. Pseudo-events. They manufacture events. We spent 3 days talking about the word nasty. How preposterous. They push propaganda for the progressive ideology. AOC is famous not because she's smart, not because she's profound, not because she's accomplished anything, but because they want to promote her and her agenda. Social activism, climate change. Is there any individual at CNN or MSNBC in their newsrooms who don't push climate change? There's no diversity of intellectual thought in these newsrooms. None. They've abandoned the pursuit of objectivity for social activism, progressivism, and the Democrat Party agenda. And they promote that agenda day in and day out. In fact, they lead it. The reason we talk about impeachment today is not because the president committed any impeachable offenses. It's because the media and the Democrat Party want to remove him. The reason we spent 2.5 years talking about collusion with Russia, a manufactured story, a pseudo-fake event, as the president calls it, not because there was any evidence, but because this is what the media was pushing day in and day out. They are not defending the right on the First Amendment of freedom of the press. What is the purpose of freedom of the press? Why is it in the First Amendment? It's not in the First Amendment because of CNN or MSNBC or their corporate ownership or any specific so-called journalist. It's in there for the American people. Now, why do we have freedom of the press? We have freedom of the press to expand freedom of speech among the American people. The point of news and newsrooms is to give us the information through which we can make decisions about our families, our lives, our government, our country, so we can be informed. The best place to find it right now is local TV news. You're not going to find it in the vast majority of news operations at the national level.
But Mark, wait. I disagree.
Yeah.
You get it right. Rush gets it right. I get it right. Every single newsroom in America fell for the lies, the conspiracies, and the hoaxes. You know, we have Ed Henry and Catherine Herridge.
But, Sean, I said newsrooms, not talk radio, not opinion shows. And they look down on all of us. And the funny thing is, they're as much opinion as the rest of us. The difference is we're transparent. We tell people who we are. We don't pretend to be something that we're not. These people who are reporters today, not all of them, there's some exceptions, but unfortunately the general rule, they don't understand the history of freedom of the press. They don't even understand the value of freedom of the press. Most of them are narcissistic. Most of them draw attention to themselves, want to draw attention to themselves. I can go down the list, Acosta and so forth. That's not news. That's not serving the American people. That's not freedom of the press. So the point I want to make to you is this. The President of the United States is their target right now, but overall it's the American people. The difference between the Patriot Press was they wanted to fundamentally transform government. The press today wants to fundamentally protect it. They're the Praetorian Guard of big government. And if you're somebody from the outside and you want to challenge it, If you're somebody from the outside and you want to limit it, cut it, rearrange it, you're the enemy of the press. They like to talk about the president saying that they're the enemy of the people, but the press has its own enemies. Today, the press wants to fundamentally transform not government, but the American citizen, but the civil society.
All right,
That's
Mark Levin.
the difference between the Patriot press and the press today. It's a disaster.
All right, great one. Unfreedom of the press. For 4 weeks now, Amazon.com, between them and the New York Times, #1 in the country. Well-deserved. Great job. Life, Liberty, and Levin. Don't miss it every Sunday. The #1 show on cable, right here on the Fox News Channel.